Tēnā koutou katoa, good evening and welcome into the breakdown. Well, they say good things take time, and for the Blues it was a very long time. Some of this group have been waiting a decade to bring Blues rugby back to the top again.
Yes! Yes! Goldie!
He couldn't help himself. I'll tell you what.
I'm avoiding eye contact. I'm just going to talk to you two.
How do you feel today, JK? Now that it's actually sunk in, that the Blues are back on top. They are kings of Super Rugby once again. It has been a long time coming. And as we've said, so many of these players, the Kedders, the Daltons, the Paddies, they've been a part of this environment for such a long time. Yeah,
I absolutely, love this city. Born and bred here, I love this city. It's one of the most beautiful cities in the world. Love the franchise. I failed trying to do what they did last night. There's a lot of great coaches, including you, Goldie, Joe Smith. You know, there's a lot of people that really cared about this franchise, and we tried our best, and it just didn't work out. So last night was like a little bit of a reflection, and then today I just thought it's great for the game. You know, I think that I felt really sorry for the Chiefs. They'll probably be incredibly disappointed. They probably felt that they didn't play their best game, which is not what you want in a final. But I just thought the last 4 weeks was some really good rugby, some interesting rugby, some not so good rugby. But yeah, I'm just really proud for the region and for the franchise.
Oh, it's been a long time, isn't it? And I think, you know, obviously hearing in JK's voice, it means a lot to a lot of people. I mean, the fact that the Blues were so dominant in the early stages of Super Rugby and in what they've sort of gone through. But you've seen it. I mean, and also there's also that element as well. Is it really when are they going to stop sort of playing us? And I suppose in some ways as well, they have been. They've stuck to their game plan. They absolutely stuck to their game plan. They were disciplined enough to stick to their game plan, and man, they produced it once again in the final. What
will the celebrations be like, Mills? What were they like 21 years ago? What kind of state were you in on Saturday night?
Oh, I can't actually remember. It's so long ago.
That's what sort of state you're in.
Yeah, it's probably that. But the fact that even now, like 21 years, that is a very long time. Some of these guys wouldn't even, through their fathers,
Look, it's supposed to be hard work to win a title. It's supposed to be. Now, we've had a franchise that has played really well for a long period of time, the last 6 years in the Crusaders. And they didn't make it, they made it look easier than it probably was. It was hard work for them as well every single year. And this has been a group of people, I think, behind the scenes as well for the Blues. And I'm going to call John Hart out here. He put himself back into the fold with that group to try and establish this resilience and toughness he felt they needed to get a result to win a Super Rugby title. It took them a while to maybe get the players on board. It took a while to maybe get the coach just to get them that little bit further. And that was what Vern Cotter had done. Liam McDonald had a great tenure with them, got them to a point, but he couldn't quite get them that step further. So all of this working behind the scenes, and the credit to these group of players who committed to them. Remember, we celebrated when Rieko Ioane signed on again. He put his hand up and said, now he's going on sabbatical next year, but he's achieved what he wanted to achieve, which was bring a title home. I'll just say this, though. It was dominant, it was impressive, but it was also slightly disappointing because it wasn't the contest I thought we were going to get. I thought the margins between these two teams will be much closer, and I know the Chiefs will be bitterly disappointed, particularly when they wake up this morning in Auckland and it's a beautifully fine day.
What is up with that? Come on.
It's Auckland. No, that's what happens in Auckland.
It was just raining last night. It was fine when we got to the ground.
Well, you know exactly how wet it was. We were drenched. But, Mills, I think the moment it started to rain, it slightly went in favour of the Blues, and they went out there. And they only lost 2 games all season. And one of those was to the Crusaders in Christchurch, when the Crusaders' backs were completely against the wall, and they probably didn't even give themselves a chance to win that game. So ultimately, they are the best side in this competition.
But that's why it was so intriguing during this final throughout the whole week, because you had 2 different styles, 2 very different styles. If the Blues got sucked into playing the Chiefs sort of style, the expansive, I think they would have got skinned. The other way around as well, if it went to slow and sort of battering up the Blues. And that's why, during the week you couldn't actually really pick what was going to happen. And I think, even though everyone knew what their game plan would have muscled up, and they still had to go out there and implement it. And that's what really impressed me.
I agree with Goldie. I think one of the most disappointing things when I got back was how broken the whole region was. And I think Hardy's done an amazing job in bringing that back together. Everyone seems to be working in the same direction. I'm actually seeing it with the whole Super all the franchises. I think the interesting thing, when I asked Vern what was one of his highlights besides last night, he said the losses. you know, and I think this is the first time we've seen Blues come off the field against the loss and be really determined. We spoke about it, didn't we? We were sitting in the lounge in Christchurch, and every single one of them was really annoyed with the loss, and they felt they'd let themselves down and they needed to learn from that. So I thought that was interesting from Vern, you know.
Was he dancing then?
He was.
He was dancing.
Yeah.
Did he come around to your place for a red? That's what he threatened to do.
No, but he's about to get delivered some, I can tell you that.
And I know what it's going to be reading on the front of it, which is outstanding. I want to touch on something, because we talked about it before the game, Mills. Defence wins championships.
Yeah.
And that's what the Blues have done this season. All of the stuff over the previous years, the razzle-dazzle, the fantastic tries, and it's not to say they didn't score tries on the outside channel, but what they did was they proved they were the best defensive team. And actually, by record, if you compare them to the Crusaders, who have set the bar, right, their record defensively, let's have a look at the statistics out of this game, right? The average points conceded for them is at 15.7. That is the best record in Super Rugby compared to those 6 seasons of the Crusaders. Just 2.1 tries conceded per game. And look at the points differential. That's to say they're not just winning one way.
Yeah.
They're beating teams. They're scoring points, and they've done it consistently across this competition. And that's when you get down to these moments. It's what a championship team does. And that's why I think if you start talking about them, let's talk about them going forward. No Akira Ioane, no Rieko Ioane for next year. He's heading on a sabbatical, taking a break. I can't see them losing too much else, Mills.
JK, Barrett comes back.
Beauden Barrett comes back. So what is it we've got? We've got the start of maybe another dynasty who's going to be really well, hard to knock that over, because I get the sense if they can roll other guys in. Anton Segner comes in, we know the talent that he has. Cam Soifoa, he's going to be there as well. They've got some young players.
AJ Lamb.
AJ Lamb, exactly. Bryce Heem.
You signed Bryce straight away, don't you?
Forbes. So I'm just saying, if you look at it, and Zahn Sullivan returns, there's a lot to like about what the Blues are going to have in 2025.
I think there's 2 other things I'd add to defence, Mills, is discipline. So they were incredible last night in wet conditions. Their discipline was amazing, but also the discipline around not throwing that 50-50 ball. Yep. You know, the Blues in the past would have thrown a 50-50 pass trying to bring something X factor, whereas they just wouldn't throw that. And they haven't thrown it all year, and they've just got down to their work. But defence does win championship. I agree with that. Is that a good thing for rugby? I don't know. But
I don't think it's a bad thing. When you think about, we've only been forced at this time of the year to that point where they've been able to do some really nice things through the course of the seasons. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, because, look, we just watched the Rugby World Cup final, decided by 1 point. Yeah. You know, these are experiences, you know, where you're talking about how tight they can be, Mills. I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing. I would like this one to have been closer last night at Eden Park for the 44,000 fans that turned up.
But, Mills, did the Chiefs play their final last week?
No, I don't think they were allowed to play the final, right? So they had moments in that first 5 or 10 odd minutes, you know, that they had the ball, made mistakes, and then, you know, possibly piled on the points, tried to pile on the pressure, should I say, on the Blues, but they sort of sucked it up and got themselves out of them. Once they got down the other end, that was it. Anything inside your own 50, or even just outside your own 50, the Blues will hold on to that ball. They blunt you to death, you know, and that's what they do. And then you run out of ideas. You're zapped in terms of your energy that you almost sort of come up and say, well, what do we do next? Well, you know what the Blues are going to do? They're just going to hit you again with their attack. I love their defence, because it's actually more than the fact that it's the tackler. It's a support player. The support player is doing an absolute job on them. I mean, getting in underneath, you know, as a support player, knocking them down, then they're getting back up. So they're contemplating the fact that, you know, that ruck's going to be really, really quick. But I love the way they've sort of gone about it. It's a whole complete... And then you go on the end of that, the fact that these players that are coming through the grade as well, they're in a good spot.
I just want to read you some comments from Clayton McMillan on the Blues style of play. He said it's probably going away from All Black DNA style of rugby, and it'll be interesting to see whether or not the All Blacks coaches adopt this kind of style. Will we see it at the international level?
No. I get it. I think it's winning football, but I don't think we have the athlete to take someone like South Africa on at their own game, or the English for that matter. Right. I think our DNA is playing a whole lot more, right? So for me, no.
It's not our competitive advantage against the rest of the world, but the Blues have used it perfectly in this tournament. up against the opposition that they are playing, and I think it's very specific to that. I mean, let's be honest, I don't remember Harry Plummer. How many times would he have passed the ball in the game last night? Because that wasn't the plan. You know, I thought Stephen Perifeta had a great job at fullback of covering the backfield. He carried it back, and he just kept heaping more and more pressure on. So, to your point, I think it's not going to be reflective of how the All Blacks will want to play going forward. But it's nice to know you've got some players who have the mindset, if they have to roll up their sleeves and go, you know what, it's a tight game, and the conditions come down and you go, well, we can't do this. We've got some guys who go, you know what, I know how to go forward and I can carry.
But also we can adapt now, because there's guys now that will play against that style and think, well, hey, there's ways you can actually try and combat that now. I think that it's definitely not in our DNA. I mean, if you fast forward this time next year, JK, would you love to win another final like this? Or, I mean, you'd love to win another final, but I don't think going forward it's just not in our... We love to spread the ball around, but the positive about it is at least we know we can play the style.
I think it's a building block. So it does remind me of Canterbury. Like, if you've coached against them, you go down there, you make a penalty, they kick into the corner and they maul you. They also learnt to play way more expansive, right? Because they have a confident go back to. Yep. They'd play their style of football, but then when they got to put under pressure, you'd know they kick it to the corner, pick and go, and score when they needed to. So I think it's a good thing to have. I think it'll be the start of what Vern will build, and he'll build on that to be a bit more expansive. The other thing I want to talk about in this Super Rugby is actually the jobs that the referees have done. I think they've had an outstanding season. I think Polly's done a great job with the New Zealand refs. Last week, I thought if the Chiefs had a loss, there would have been a disaster, because I thought there were some really bad calls last week. But that was one out of the bag, and I thought last night, although he probably didn't have a lot to do, Goldie, because it's a pretty easy one to ref, but the referees this year, I think, have got into the spirit of the game, and that's been part of a better product. Yeah. You know?
I couldn't agree more. You've said it perfectly there. I can't add to that, to be fair.